It was a beautiful day in the countryside, the sun was shining bright, and the birds were chirping happily. A little puppy named Max was playing with his owner, Emma, in the garden. Emma loved Max more than anything else in the world, and Max adored her just as much. One afternoon, Max saw a squirrel running up a tree. He immediately chased after it, not realizing that he was leaving the safety of his garden behind. As Max continued to chase the squirrel, he went deeper and deeper into the forest, not noticing that he was getting further away from Emma. Max eventually caught up with the squirrel, but he realized too late that he was lost in the forest. He looked around, but everything looked unfamiliar, and he couldn't see or hear Emma anywhere. Max was frightened and alone, and he started to cry. As the sun began to set, Max started to feel hungry and thirsty. He looked for food and water but couldn't find any. He tried to sleep, but the cold night air made him shiver. Max was miserable, and he missed Emma terribly. Meanwhile, Emma was frantically searching for Max. She called his name repeatedly, but there was no response. She asked her neighbors if they had seen him, but nobody had. Emma was devastated, and she couldn't imagine life without Max. Days turned into weeks, and Emma's hope of finding Max started to fade. She put up posters and talked to everyone she met, hoping that someone had seen Max. But no one had any information about him. As for Max, he had given up hope of ever finding Emma again. He had been wandering around the forest, looking for food and shelter. He had met other animals, but none of them were friendly or helpful. Max was lonely, hungry, and scared. One day, Max met a wise old owl. The owl had seen Max wandering around the forest and decided to help him. The owl gave Max some advice on how to survive in the forest and told him that he needed to stay strong and keep looking for a way out. Max took the owl's advice to heart and continued his search for a way out of the forest. He walked for hours, days, and weeks, and finally, one day, he saw a familiar face. It was Emma, walking towards him with tears in her eyes. Emma had received a tip from a kind-hearted stranger who had seen Max in the forest. She had searched for days and finally found him. When Max saw Emma, he was overwhelmed with joy, and he ran towards her as fast as he could. Emma hugged Max tightly and cried tears of happiness. Max was finally safe, and he was reunited with the person he loved more than anything else in the world. From that day on, Max never left Emma's side. He had learned a valuable lesson about staying safe and being careful, but he also knew that Emma would always be there for him. Max was grateful for the owl's advice and the kind stranger's help, but most of all, he was grateful for Emma's love and loyalty.